Greetings one and all, how's everyone doing? I hope very well. It's Monday, my day off. I'm out shooting a few videos at the park, and I wanted to talk about reserving a camp spot or site. Again, this is a Facebook discussion that I saw in one of the groups I belong to, and I'll roll in a couple of photographs right now. So this is about reserving a campsite. Now, ideally, it would be best to be packed, ready to go, show up at your site, set up, and start camping. Now, this is mainly for dispersed and public land camping. With paid campgrounds, I think if you reserve it, they'll put a sign on the reserve post that says reserved, and you know it's yours, or your last name will be on there. So that's fine. So I've heard that sometimes they won't do it, either because they're lazy or they didn't get the message, and you show up and someone's there. It's like, so you gotta explain to them, well, we paid for this site, and then they gotta pack up and leave. I've not heard if anyone's gotten any anger about that, but I can see that happening. There's always misunderstandings, but I think that, putting up a tent and putting up a ribbon was a much better marker to say, I'm here. And as far as I'm concerned, if I saw that or just a tent, that would be good enough for me to say, someone took that spot. You may not like it, and it may just anger you, and it's like, oh, I wanted to camp there, and now I can't because someone's tent's there. Which has happened to me quite often, because it seems like lately, with the pandemic going on, there's more people out camping and less, I think, my theory is less people out going on vacations or taking trips. So instead of trips and vacations and flying out of state or whatever they're doing, they're going camping instead. Which is probably why there's more garbage out in the woods, because one, they may not be a permanent camper, so you can go, school bell. So you can go to the park, or you can go out, you can go to Walmart or whatever and buy a cheap tent, air mattress, sleeping bag, which you might or might not already have. I've done videos on camping on the cheap, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to come out and camp. It can be done cheap. And you can bring all the food from home. Like I commented, I saw jars of spaghetti sauce, and you only need a decent sized pot to boil noodles and pour in the sauce. The hot noodles will heat up the sauce, so you don't have to put the sauce in another pan. Just, I've done it a bunch of times. With the exception of meat, I'll fry up in a pan and just dump it in there, stir and then eat. Or I usually put cheddar cheese on mine, but that's another story. So, tent, I think, is a good marker. I don't consider chairs to be a good camp marker, because as another person commented, he said, I showed up we drove past the campsite. This is his comment. I drove past the campsite, and there were 3 chairs sitting there. He said the next day, they were leaving for something. I think they were running into town real quick. And they look over in the same spot the next day, about 4 p.m., 5 p.m., the chairs are still sitting there. And I have seen and picked up camp chairs, cheap ass $6, $7 camp chairs. I've picked those up as litter in many campsites. So people will buy them, take them out for the weekend, and then just dump them. So leaving a chair behind, I don't think covers. The downside with leaving a tent, though, is, as another commenter made, she said that they got there, they set up their tent. I think it was 2 tents. They put out their sleeping pads, they put out their sleeping bags. They left to go day hike. They come back and their tent and all their stuff was stolen. So it's kind of a risk. And I personally don't like leaving my campsite just for that reason, because it's hard to have faith in people when people go out and they trash the woods. So that caliber person, in my opinion, low life, who would steal somebody else's camping gear. That might be, I don't know what kind of financial situation, but that might have been all they had. So, it's like, well, we can't afford to go on vacation, but I can afford to go camping because all I need, once you have your gear, all you need is gas to get there and home and food to eat, which you can eat on the cheap, which I've done videos on. I've made food out here for, just a couple of bucks, which is not hard to do. I mean, you can get a can of chicken for $1 and a whole can of a package of instant mashed potatoes, and that's $2. And whatever seasonings you already have at house, a little Parmesan cheese, salt, pepper, whatever you've got, that's an easy meal, and it's a hot meal, and pretty, mashed potatoes are pretty filling, especially if you eat the whole package by yourself. I mean, if you're sharing with somebody, which I could see happening. So eating cheap. If it was me, I think putting out a tent is fine. The downside is, and I've seen this, is they'll go to Big Five or Walmart and they'll get the cheapest tent they can get, or they'll look for one on sale or get one on Craigslist. I actually saw a free tent on Craigslist. It was a free Eureka A-frame tent, but their email didn't work, so I couldn't get it. But you can get a tent like that and then set it up there. But I've seen people leave their tent up all week long while there's no evidence that it's been there. The campfire is completely cold, but they've reserved their camp with a tent that's been there all week. To me, that's not fair. In my personal opinion, your cutoff should be 8 p.m. Like, if you haven't showed up by 8 p.m., then your site, in my opinion, should be forfeit. Because, I don't know if you're coming back or not. It's like, so what, you're going to hold your site all night and not be there? That's not fair to everybody else. I know it's first come, first serve, and you did get there first, but, it's like, what about everybody else, though? It's like, no one else can camp there because you've permanently left your tent there? I don't know if you've had that tent up all week, or, sometimes you can tell if a tent's been there for a while. It's covered in debris, it's covered in needles, it's covered in crap, or it's blown over to the side, or there's something that it looks like it's been there a while. And it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna roll your tent up and set it aside and go ahead and camp there. So I think my personal opinion, if you're not there by 8 p.m., then you lose it. But apparently, I believe it's Washington law. You get it for 24 hours. And I think there's a maximum of 2 weeks you can be at a campsite, because then the rangers will come by, or the sheriff will say, hey, you've been here too long. And all they'll do is they'll pack up and move to the next site and then set up there. And then usually those are the kind of people who will leave trash everywhere. And, personally, I hate that, because it's like, yeah, it's free use, but you're taking advantage, and no one else can camp there, which is not fair to everybody else. So that's just my thoughts on the matter. I guess I'll leave it at that. If you have anything you want to add, please do so in the comments or do a video. As always, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your watching. Appreciate your views, your support. And I'll catch you in the next one.